February 1943, Tunisia. The desert vibrates with engines and wind. Kasserine Pass prepares to receive its first major battle. American troops are finally about to measure themselves against the Axis. Under a murky sky and sand that blinds the horizon, the Americans will face, for the first time, the direct order of the Afrika Korps, led by Rommel, the Desert Fox. What was meant to be a trial by fire turns into a lesson in humility. German and Italian veterans move their columns with precision, read the terrain, and strike exactly where the enemy hesitates. On the other side, an enthusiastic but scattered army learns too late that the desert does not forgive inexperience. At Kasserine, the United States did not only lose thousands of men and hundreds of tanks. It lost the illusion of invulnerability. This is the story of the humiliation that shaped American soldiers for a devastating war. The war in North Africa had entered its decisive phase. After the Allied landings of Operation Torch in November 1942, British and American forces advanced from Algeria and Morocco with the goal of closing the pincer around Tunisia, the Axis' last stronghold on the continent. While Anglo-American troops pushed from the west, Rommel, the legendary Desert Fox, was retreating from Libya toward the east after his defeat at El Alamein. His forces were worn down and pressure from Germany continued to grow.
The goal for both the Axis and Allied armies is Tunisia, home to the last major Axis ports of Bizerte and Tunis. For Rommel, the shorter supply lines in Tunisia offer a chance to replenish his army and perhaps bring it closer to being an effective force. But 2,500 kilometers of non-stop retreat has unsettled the German high command. In Berlin, the General Staff make arrangements for his replacement and continually ask Rommel to take much-needed sick leave. He refuses for the time being.
Despite opposition from the German High Command, Rommel was determined to remain in command. He understood something his enemies had yet to grasp. In Africa, geography was a weapon. The mountains of the Tunisian Atlas, split into two parallel ridges, formed natural corridors and narrow passes. Deadly funnels where whoever moved first could decide the outcome of the battle. Among those defiles, Kasserine Pass was critical. Whoever controlled it controlled access to the Tunisian interior and the routes leading west. For Rommel, it was the perfect place to launch a rapid offensive that could destabilize the enemy before they consolidated their positions. For the Americans, it was simply another name on the map of an unfamiliar land.
The thing you see about Rommel is an ability to adapt, coupled with a relentless aggressiveness. He's got great instincts, he's got the ability to get inside the minds of his adversary, understand their psychology, and to dominate their psychology.
The Allied structure in Tunisia was marked by improvisation. Each force advanced from its own sector, but without cohesion. Terrain, logistics, and experience divided the front as much as the command chains did. In the north, the British First Army under General Kenneth Anderson fought German forces defending Bizerte and Tunis. In the center, the French 19th Corps held intermediate positions. In the south, the U.S. Second Corps, commanded by General Lloyd Fredendall, covered a mountainous, wide, and vulnerable sector. The front was long, irregular, and communication between Allied commands was clumsy. The Americans had yet to face large-scale mobile warfare, and their doctrine, based on manuals and optimism, collided with the African reality. Fredendall, a desk-bound general, embodied that disconnect. He commanded the battle from a subterranean headquarters carved into rock, more than 100 kilometers from the front line, protected by anti-aircraft batteries and wrapped in secrecy. From that distance, he issued confusing radio orders, often without knowing the terrain or the real disposition of his units. Field officers grew frustrated as they received impossible or contradictory instructions. The result was an army without a shared rhythm, dispersed with weak defensive positions and minimal coordination with nearby British or French units, isolated and unguided. Inexperience against a powerful enemy fed uncertainty.
The Germans were good soldiers. They'd been in combat, a lot of it. We just didn't have any experience.
First time going to combat, you really never know what to expect. Some men are shaking, some are throwing up, some are crying, some are energized. But deep down inside, everybody's a little bit scared.
The prelude to Kasserine was written in early 1943. On January 30th, a German offensive broke through the Führer Pass, exposing Allied fragility. Poorly equipped French forces requested American support, but the tank columns of 2nd Corps arrived late and were ambushed by 88mm guns. Then, between February 14th and 15th, the fighting shifted to Sidi Bou Zid, where U.S. forces dispersed without coordination. Rommel observed the clumsiness and struck, turning the plain into a cauldron of fire.
Supported by artillery and Stuka dive bombers, the panzers take green U.S. troops around Sidi Bou Zid by surprise. Isolated on 2 hilltops, the U.S. infantry is unable to move or support each other.
Allied columns retreated in disorder, mixing infantry, tanks, and trucks beneath a sky filled with bombs. That withdrawal left the western gate open, Kasserine Pass. Sensing weakness, Rommel seized the opportunity. If he could push through the pass toward Tebessa, he might fracture the Allied front, capture supplies, and possibly drive the Americans out of Tunisia. Geography, surprise, and the enemy's low morale worked in his favor. The German High Command hesitated. Berlin demanded a defensive stand in Tunisia, not a deep offensive. Rommel chose to act anyway. His plan was clear. Strike hard through Kasserine while another column staged a diversionary attack at Speba to pin down the British. It was a risky maneuver, but Rommel knew his battlefield better than anyone. He understood that in the desert, mistakes are paid for in blood. And the U.S. Army, in its baptism of fire, was about to learn that lesson the hard way.
But Stark's men are mostly construction troops and have never seen action. They struggle to build a hasty defensive line. They do plant 3,000 mines, but simply lay many of these on the road. The Americans do have artillery support, including from a horse-drawn French battery of 75mm guns, but powerful Allied armor reserves stay at the rear to avoid a repeat of the Sidi Bou Zid disaster.
Dawn on February 19th, 1943, found the desert wrapped in heavy silence. Deep in the valley, the roar of German engines shattered the calm. Rommel's offensive had begun. The 10th and 21st Panzer Divisions, along with Italian Centauro units, advanced with surgical discipline toward the Kasserine and Speba passes. The objective was clear: break the front, spread panic, and push the Allies westward, cutting the routes to Tebessa. The terrain played its part. Kasserine was a narrow throat, flanked by barren hills where every curve could conceal a gun or an ambush. Both sides tried to exploit it, but experience favored the Nazis.
The pass is 1 mile wide and 2,000 American troops guarded. Many are in foxholes across the floor, and some are in the foothills that flank the pass. A mile behind the troops are 36 tank destroyers, along with a few tanks. Out in front of the Americans, the enemy is bearing down on them with 100 tanks and 8,000 men.
American defenses were weak. The lines were poorly anchored, lacked depth, and the inexperienced crews had never faced concentrated fire. When the 1st Panzers broke through, 2nd Corps positions collapsed. The attack was a lesson in synchronization. German artillery opened with precision, severing roads and communications. Tanks followed the pattern honed through years of mobile warfare. Advance rapidly, identify blind spots, and infiltrate the line. American soldiers, stunned by the enemy's speed, tried to reorganize, but orders arrived late or contradicted each other.
You got a psychological effect that said, oh my God, you know, this is a main attack. They're really launching the artillery on us. We are really in for it.
The American defense begins to crumble as the German tanks of the 10th Panzer Division punch through.
From his distant bunker, Fredendall transmitted fragmented instructions, unaware that the maps no longer matched the reality of the battlefield. Within hours, entire units were isolated. Infantry battalions withdrew through the canyons under a storm of shells. Trucks jammed narrow paths, creating deadly bottlenecks. The sky filled with Stukas diving with their howling sirens, spreading terror beyond their physical destruction. Meanwhile, farther north at Spiba, British and French forces resisted the secondary Axis thrust more effectively. That resistance forced Rommel to concentrate his main effort at Kasserine. It was bold, but dangerous. By pushing deeper, his supply lines stretched to the breaking point. On February 20th and 21st, the Germans continued advancing. They captured prisoners, destroyed tanks, and seized the pass. The American front crumbled. Men from the 1st Armored Division and the 34th Infantry Division fell back toward Thala and Tebessa, leaving behind burning vehicles and bodies half buried in the sand. In just 2 days, the United States lost thousands of men and more than 180 tanks. It was a defeat that was visible, tangible, and humiliating. But the tide began to turn. On February 22nd, Rommel's columns encountered an unexpected barrier. An improvised defense at Thala, where British and American artillery had been massed. Unlike previous days, there was coordination. Guns pounded the approaches with continuous fire, while Allied aircraft struck Axis supply routes. Rommel knew the element of surprise was gone. His troops were exhausted, fuel was running low, and effective air support was lacking. Intelligence reports warned of enemy reinforcements on the way. In a cold but pragmatic decision, he ordered the attack halted and withdrew eastward. On February 24th, the Allies reoccupied Kasserine Pass. The ground had changed hands, but at a terrible cost. 6,500 American casualties, 183 tanks, and a humiliation that echoed through headquarters for weeks. The Axis, with barely 2,000 casualties, gained no strategic victory, but achieved a symbolic one. Kasserine became the first serious blow to American morale. The desert had exposed the fragility of a novice army facing an enemy that mastered the art of mobile warfare. News of the disaster crossed the desert faster than convoys and shook the foundations of Allied command. Eisenhower understood it was not merely a tactical defeat, but a structural humiliation. Poor coordination, distant leadership, and an army still unable to operate as a modern force. General Lloyd Fredendall, isolated in his underground headquarters and responsible for confused orders, became the face of failure. His removal was immediate. Chosen to rebuild Second Corps was George S. Patton, a hard, energetic commander with an almost religious belief in discipline. Patton moved headquarters to the front, imposed order, reorganized units, and punished complacency. His message was simple. Respect is earned by fighting well. Under his command, the U.S. Army abandoned dispersion and adopted method. From Kasserine emerged a new doctrine: concentration of fire, defense in depth, and above all, coordination with air power. What had once been improvised as reaction was now planned as part of combat. Communications improved, air observers were integrated, and clear channels were established between British, French, and American forces. The proof came at El Guetar in March 1943. This time, Patton's forces held firm against German attacks. No spectacular victories, but solid resistance. Concentrated artillery fire and direct command showed the lesson had been learned. Kasserine taught the United States that wars are not won with enthusiasm or numbers alone. Rommel won the story of the day, while the Allies gained the lesson they needed to win the campaign. This is where we come to the end. If you enjoyed this video, we invite you to join us in our next episode.